Hello and welcome to the Gwendolyn's Open March Cast. Hope that everybody's having a good Monday. But I am Dale, the White Wolf Martell, joined today by Swim, Ruben, and HG3 as my fellow casters for this. How's it going, guys?
I'm great,
What's
Dale.
up?
Thanks for asking.
Great.
It's fantastic over here.
Our intro needs audio. Yes, I know that's something that we're working on still. We want to make sure it sounds nice for you guys. But nope, hopefully you all are having a good day. So this is the semifinals and the finals of the Gwendolyn's Open that just took place over this last weekend. I want to start off by thanking everybody who participated and made the Gwendolyn's Open this weekend. Let us be able to do this in the first place because I think we had an amazing turnout. So I want to thank everybody who made it and tried to make it through the qualifiers. Special thank you to the finalists as well. So it was qualifiers on Saturday, top 32 finals on Sunday, and we are casting now the semifinals and the finals matches for you guys today. So this is pre-recorded video. These matches occurred yesterday, but we will be casting live on top of that. So all of this is live. It's just the videos that are recorded. So we have to just so you guys are aware on that. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. Anybody have any else that they wanted to say before we get started here?
No, I've got nothing, Dale.
Should have known.
I'm super excited about this one. I think that, for the players, sometimes the timing of a tournament right after a patch could be stressful. But as a spectator, this is a real treat to get to see a lot of the new strategies in play, especially now that you guys have added a really generous prize pool in the mix. So I think it's going to be a very interesting competition, and props to you guys for being able to put up that money, and I can't wait to see how it goes.
Yeah, it's actually the biggest prize pooled Gwent tournament to date for another month or so.
So we get just completely blown out of the water by challenge.
It's officially the international of Gwent right now.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah, actually, I did forget to mention that. Thank you for bringing that up, HG3. But we do have a $200 prize pool for this. So first place is going to be taking home $100. Second place is taking home $60. And third place is taking home $40. So I'm really, I don't know, I like the fact that we were able to put this on for you guys and that we were able to have this prize pool. Because I do want to try and make us moving in that direction, that we have these, fun tournaments. But I want to reward everybody who's participating. But for now, we'll just be rewarding the top three. So I do want to get into the matches for you guys. I don't want to take up too much of your times with the caster's desk. But our first match is going to be the first of our semifinals matches. It is Captain Frey versus Gwent Town. And we have Ruben and HG3 casting for you guys. So let's go ahead and hop on over to that. And we'll get that set up for you guys.
Okay, how are you doing today, Ruben?
I'm amazing. I'm super excited to be casting some more games. It's always great, and especially, like you said, after a patch just like this, the timing wasn't maybe the best for the optimal competitive play, but it's so exciting to cast. The meta hasn't been really settled yet, and this is gonna be great to see so much variety and so much new stuff. So,
Yeah, and this is an important point of progression for the meta, because right now we're going to see how things are evolving from the onset of the patch. So there's a lot to be taken from this tournament, and people are going to be able to observe what's going on and adapt moving forward. But we're already jumped into the game. It looks like we have the perspective of Scoia'tael player, which is Gwent Town, and he's up against Captain Frey, I believe, who's playing Skellige. What do you think about these factions after patch, Ruben?
I think both have great potential. It's just the way you will use them. Basically, like any faction, right now, I think any faction can do basically what it has to, and immediately starting out with Milva, which is a very interesting play.
Old face,
what do you
new
think
place,
about that?
she's back.
Yeah.
Milva Roach, the combo that everyone dreaded from 2 patches ago, is officially back, and it is the early card advantage. So Gwent Town flips the coin and ends up going first and offsets that immediately, which can be a hassle. I've noted on my notepad in big letters, Berna ? There's no Berna in the list for Captain Frey. It has been replaced by Siri normal, so we'll see how that works out. It can be an opportunity for card advantage depending on how the first round goes. It may mean he plays a little bit more of aggressive and opening from a Skellige player and Skellige perspective. The Smuggler's already online. And we'll see how he deals with the tempo generated by smugglers here, as Gwent Town seems to be throwing a lot on the board.
Yeah, he's immediately starting off with a lot of aggressiveness. He clearly wants to put a lot of strength in this round, but remember that Captain Frey does have Axemen, and they can quite literally go pretty high in the later stages. So the longer this round goes, the more of an advantage Captain Frey will have, I believe. So we'll see how this turns out. Immediately using Wildboar of the Seas as well. A really strong card right now.
Yeah, and a really nice card after the changes. Being able to trigger Axeman 3 times and get 6 points worth of removal is very strong. And wow, that is a lucky pull there. Perfect timing on the Merc into the Alzur's Thunder to take out Axeman in stride at 7. So from a control perspective, Gwent to Town has to be pretty happy considering his hand also includes his Scorch and his Nature's Gift, 2 cards that you don't really want to see off of Mercs, allowing all the Mercs to be playable first round.
Indeed, he especially he definitely does have the necessary things he needs to when he needs to take care of the Axemen. So this is definitely looking for that Gwent to Town is in a really good spot. But there goes Yavin, maybe signing that it's already a way that where Gwent to Town wants to go here.
Yeah,
do you think he should?
7. He's in a pretty good position. I think the play of Yavin here is showing how comfortable he is in this round. He knows that the Axeman has to get online a second time, and for it to get online, it's going to have to come around Yavin's strength. So there could be a really awkward phase of this round where there's double value off of a Scourge.
Indeed. So in this spot, would you still keep playing as Captain Frey here? Because if you do, you are 2 cards behind, but you probably secured around here.
I think he has to keep playing. Like I said, his list is not playing Burnet. Instead, it is playing Ciri, and Ciri in round 2 is not going to help you against Skoya. You know that there's already a boosted card in hand by virtue of the Dragoon on board. So going into round 2 with a Sapper sitting at 12 right now could be a very dangerous play for a Skellige player that hasn't played his Donner and Hindar either. So I'd be pretty concerned right now. If I'm Captain Frey, you got to try and really assert yourself. I try and generate tempo, even though you're going to go down 2. Of course, Harold's ability, not as strong as he used to be, as it doesn't hit golds anymore and doesn't get extra damage on damaged units. But he has to figure out some way to create a sizable lead and then consider the pass.
Indeed. And last play as well, using the Lacerate to set up a great Scorch here for future. I think Gwent to Town is immediately going to take that chance if he gets it. I don't know. It's pretty obvious. If I were Captain Frey, his intentions of Gwent to Town are pretty obvious here. So we'll see what he will do.
Yeah, he pretty much telegraphed the Scorch, having Lacerated a row that just had Roach and Yavin on it. It should be the most obvious play, and this is the right play from Captain Frey, I believe, because the Axeman represents the threat of being able to generate tempo again via Harold's ability. So he's very much so still in this round, and the longer it goes, honestly, if Captain Frey is able to pull out the win, he'll be happy if he's down 2 cards because he needs this round.
Yeah, indeed. And that one's also a nice Lacerate. Already starting the beginning, or there, getting him slight advantage, but not the biggest advantage, which is very good to have. It's a nice tempo advantage, so he can basically decide now who's in control. Still, Gwent to Town does have the card advantage, so you gotta ask yourself who's really in control in this matchup: the one with the point advantage, or the one with the card advantage.
Yeah, and this turn in particular is going to be one of the trickiest because Gwent to Town's going to play a card, probably a Dragoon here. And now Captain Frey is going to see that he's ahead by a nice margin, and if Donner and Hindar is in hand and he plays it here, this is going to be very bad for him because it's going to get flipped back, and he's going to be in a very susceptible position in terms of card advantage in general and not be able to have a say in whether or not he's winning the round at that point. So he has to be very careful here. I think he needs to play a card to put him further ahead. We'll see what his move is.
Indeed, and you can definitely see the possibilities of Gwent to Town that he still has. He still has a Glaeus, which he can use to Scorch, and Nature's Gift is still a Scorch, if I'm not wrong, but he does passes here. Captain Frey does pass.
It's a Lacerate right now? Oh, it's a Thunder, actually.
Right, a Thunder.
So a Glace will play for 9 plus 5, so that's 14. That would be enough to win the round, and I think he has to do it here. Winning in 1 is pretty good.
Yeah, he was looking if he could do it with the Nature's Gift, but it wasn't enough, so he's definitely got to go for the Glaeus here.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that he has to lacerate here to take the round. Scorch does this. Oh, it does one more technically.
Yeah,
So it's
it was
the same
yeah.
thing essentially. Both
So
will
he
win the
takes
round, and now Siri is a really bad draw for Captain Frey.
indeed, and yeah, he basically at equal card advantage, losing a round is really bad. And Gwent to town, drawing both his golden cards right now is both his remaining golden cards. That's pretty lucky there, and that's gonna probably give him an edge. We'll see how many gold cards Captain Frey has, or there he is, the Siri. It's bad timing.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And I mean, if he had it in that first round, he would have probably played it. So I think he had to have drawn it, because I think when you're up ahead, you just drop her down and sacrifice her to try and take the round. But now with Siri on the board, possibly down on hinder in hand, it looks like Gwentatown's just going to take the pass, take the one card advantage. His hand is absolutely stacked. Captain Frey, I wish we knew it was in his hand, but we don't right now. But looking at his list, it looks like he's going to need a lot of his reses to be able to try and get Axeman online. That's probably his only hope for trying to bring this back.
Yeah, and I think Gwent to town passed there because he had Isengrim in his hand and he wanted to get as much value out of Isengrim combined with Saskia. So that's why I think he passed there. Ooh, and not getting a good target there for his rally, Captain Frame.
Yeah, pretty unfortunate pull there. He was looking for a Freya. In all likelihood, he's only played one so far out of 3. So to pull out an archer, that is technically his first archer, I believe. So it probably has the same odds. And the timing is awkward because the Axeman comes down after the archer. Of course, the board was empty. And not many targetable things in Scoia'tael's list anyway. So in general, there's some counterplay coming from Scoia'tael in this matchup.
And what will he rally here? He will either rally a Hawker Smuggler or a Vrihead Dragoon. So it's basically advice for him to play it as soon as possible. I would say if he gets the Smuggler, that it still gets some value. So yeah, or he gets something else, or he wants to get something else out of the Nature's Gift. Of course, that's also a possibility, but the rally might be a good idea.
I think you hold the Nature's Gift a little bit longer in case the last card is Restore or Restoration. I think they changed the name at some point. I never remembered which one it is. But in case that's the last spell, I think you'd want that one instead. So you'll hold it to see this last card out. And of course, Gwentatown can play around Harold with both cards out of his hand right now, which is going to really be devastating here. Harold will hit on the first sapper, I believe, who should be set to flip, but instead he actually goes for the rally. So interesting choice here.
Yeah, getting some good value here. He still has a 20 sapper sitting there in his hand, which is a lot of strength. And right now the Coral does a lot, but it's not gonna be enough right now, I think, because of the Saskia combined with the other sapper. That's a really devastating thing there, right there. And he will decoy. I was about to say decoying that improves the value all the way to 11, which is more than enough to take this round down here.
Yeah, it's a 10-point difference now, so that is a big play. I am a little surprised that he chose to copy that rally one turn earlier than I had expected. But maybe he had something that I didn't see in mind. Obviously, he plays way more Scoia'tael than I do. But giving the board state some targets for Harold. Harold gets some extra value to put on those Axemen. And it's going to be an interesting finish, but I think Gwentatown has the numbers.
Yeah. It wasn't going to be... like I said, I did say that it was going to be more than enough, but I think it's nearly going to be enough. Just enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the 20 there, okay.
Just enough.
It's only by 5. That was a good round, closer than expected, because Captain Frey there didn't get the best cards that he wanted there. And also losing that first round is pretty devastating in that case.
Yeah, he's playing an aggressive list, so not being able to take the first round is going to hurt him very often. So that's one of the things with Axeman is that they really need to get online and find some success early. But that Alzur's Thunder coming out from the Merc with perfect timing shut him down completely.
That, I think, was the swing that Gwentatown needed to get that first game, and I think that was where Captain Frey basically lost the game or started losing downhill.
I agree 100%. And it looks like we are ready to hop into game 2.
Yep.
And so both players will have an opportunity to sideboard. We were informed that they really didn't emphasize their sideboards. So, of course, that's a factor, too, to take into consideration with a new patch having happened the day before the tournament. You don't know what you'd want to be sideboarding for. I think a lot of decks are prepared to play Hensel right now, who's kind of dictating the meta. So we'll see if anyone wanted to opt out of some of those cards that are better against Hensel, maybe not as good in other matchups. But that's the only thing I could think of in general terms right now.
Yeah, and of course you don't know the dominating. Normally there's like 3 decks dominating, and you want to really counter against one because you know your weakness against one. But right now they didn't have that testing that they have normally on the ladder. So we're hopping into game number 2 here. Gwent to Town is 1 round up, so if he wins this round, he does advance to the finals. He does have a chance for that $100, so we'll see how it goes here. That was a pretty good mulligan, I'd say.
I think he ended up with a hand he's got to be pretty happy with, especially having a first light in hand, sometimes awkward, but against a Harold player that you already saw the Coral from, it's not too bad. And having Milva again, and going first again, and just flipping the coin essentially with 8 points on board is a very nice play against Skellige, who can suffer.
But right now he has Yennefer, which is a big card to have in the first round, especially in an aggressive deck that really wants to win that first round. That's pretty big, I'd say. But the Hawker Smugglers do take a lot of that damage. They will tank that by a lot. So we'll see how this goes. Definitely in a strong position. Being able to play Yennefer like that as the first card, that shows that he's going to do a lot in this round.
And he also decides to put the Hawker Smuggler on the ranged road, despite knowing that Coral exists.
Yeah.
Oh, and that rally is really unfortunate. Not rally, excuse me. That's King of Beggars pulling out one of the 4-strength targets. It happens to hit a smuggler, so these smugglers are forever connected. Just kidding, one's dead. But the point stands that it would have been bad because Yenkon would be doubling up on value for the rest of forever. But the last rate comes through. Early last rate is not bad against Scoia'tael because your targets are limited. You want to just take bodies off of the board as soon as possible. So I'm all for that kind of play.
And also the Axeman is right now out of range for anything except Scorch. And right now there won't be another less. Well, now there is because he played that second one. But if he gets a Lightning, and also Thunder, then he can actually eliminate one more Axeman, and we'll see if he actually manages to do it, because it's quite important if you can manage something like that. It's a huge deal in the first round, and it really puts you ahead quite a lot. So he's again stacking some strength on the Sapper here, like last round.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, one thing Captain Frey wants to be knowledgeable of is the Nature's Gift that he saw last match. You don't want to allow your Scoia'tael opponent to dictate what his Nature's Gift is going to be on if you can help it. Right now, I think a Thunder was just played, so he could Thunder it back, but since 2 Axemen are online, he's probably going to try and get 2 Scorches out of this at some point. And if he could intervene with like one of his first lights with a good timing, that could mean a lot of difference in terms of board state and successes in the first round especially.
So I think a Murkta Bracken might come out here to trigger that card, or maybe it's just a card to play to extend the rounds a little bit. But we'll see what the answer of Gwent to Town here is. I think Captain Frey is definitely having the upper hand here in the first round, and that might be the reason why he's playing Yavin there.
Yeah, this seems like a play that is going to
that
nice map
changes
from
a lot.
Gwent to Town. He's apparently paying a lot of attention to the game right now.
He better hit his own target. Ooh.
No, he's going to buff it up 2 strengths, so it avoids it. And it's a great response because that would have been devastating. And now it does force the pass. So the aggression from Captain Frey gets him the round 1 victory he needed, but he is down 2 cards still.
Yeah, ultimately he wouldn't have played. He shouldn't have played a card there, but he had to because the Scorch was just lined up so perfectly. And because of the last match, he saw how many Scorches he could get Gwent to Town, and that's why he didn't play it.
Yeah, and Scoia'tael doesn't have as hard of a time passing. Like, it's okay for them to pass. taking 2 cards into round 2 and some investment from the Dragoon to carry over on top of the Sapper already. So Gwenton Town isn't too frazzled by this, but it was really important round 1 victory from Captain Frey's perspective. So he's going to try and put out a little bit of tempo. A 14 strength play is nice because it's not something Scoia'tael can respond to in 1 card. So this could be enough to generate a pass here if he doesn't have any of the nice card advantage cards in his hand, which will be really unfortunate.
And if he decides to go through with this round, this Isengrim is going to be really nice. But of course, Harold is a nice answer to that.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Young Berserker pops out next to the already transformed Raging Bear, and we're really just waiting to see if Captain Frey has Ciri in his hand, if he has Donner and Hindar, something to pull this back a little bit in terms of cards. It's going to be very important for him.
Indeed. So he does decide to transform it, which is what was expected, and looks like he's really pushing out some cards out of Gwent to Town here, with a good amount of tempo, I would say.
Yeah, if he doesn't have those cards, then he could be very close to all-inning here. And all-inning in a round where your opponent has Isengrim on board is very risky, but I do understand the state that he feels he's in. There's a lot of mounting pressure. You know that there's +8 in hand from Dragoons. You're not sure how you're going to pull it back next round, but Ciri does come down. So that could be a saving grace for Captain Frey right now.
Indeed, and the Harold will do a lot of damage still. So he might, it all depends on what his last card is. He does see that Nature's Gift has been played now, so a restore would be an option right now. Oh wait, yeah, after turn, of course. He does decide to use the Scorch eventually, but we'll see what Captain Frey has in his hand still, or if he decides to use the Herald already.
So I'm taking a look at his base list right now. It turns out he does not have Restore, but he does have a couple dragons we haven't seen yet in the form of Akvist and Merc Tabraka. Also, Blue Boy Lugos hasn't shown up, so perhaps some really tough hands for Captain Frey where he's not getting some of the silvers he wants to get his cards online.
We have seen Merc Tabraka in the last
was
round
Merc
to
Tabraka
trigger.
There?
Yep.
You know, Bo Tabraka, Merc Tabraka, I mix them up all the time.
And we'll see how what he does here. Is he going to play Harold a little bit earlier, or is he going to play that last card? And what is that last card? Is it a Wild Boar of the Sea? He does decide to play Harold here, which is getting a lot of value. It would have gotten a little more if he waited 1 round, but it wouldn't have mattered that much.
Yeah, and this is a tough decision for Gwent to Town. He has to be considering just throwing down the Sapper because it would be a very convenient win. But then the last card out from Captain Frey would make his counterplay and then going into the subsequent round a little bit tricky. So instead he's going to go for the safer play and probably go down an extra card instead of risking the Sapper into pass, which would guarantee the round victor, I believe, at that point.
Mm-hmm. And what could be a last card that is important enough to keep all the way to this point?
It's a really tough call. The thing is, he has some of these answers like Coral that could be in hand. Mm-hmm. He could have a couple of these silver cards like Sigurd's Rifa. I don't think she can play this game. Yeah.
No, she hasn't.
Can't play either of those though, really, in this condition. So it's likely contemplating the pass. It's going to be very tough for him to find a situation where he could positively play one of these cards. They're not enough with no Axeman on the board.
Mm-hmm. We also haven't seen Wild Boar of the Season. This could be one card, and maybe he's doubting, should I use this in the 3rd round together with an Axeman or not? So he's really running the timer here. Ooh. Okay, that was
snuck it in there.
That was really close. Okay, so he's just going to use the Alter Standard here to win the round.
Yeah, so Alzer Slender will take the victory soundly, and he saves his Sapper. So Gwent to Town, an extra card, but it's more than just face value. It has 3 investments of Dragoons on it, so that's plus 12 on it, which is extremely difficult to deal with, especially since Scoia'tael is going to get last word in this situation.
And getting the Saskia is pretty big as well, I think. I mean, there would have been... I don't think there's a lot of cards that would be better than Saskia at this point for round 3 specifically.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a fine pull. Maybe
An
Actually,
Elven
it's probably
Mercenary.
just the best pull. You'd have to get an Elven Merc into a first line Dragoon to get a better situation. So a little idealistic otherwise. But I think it is definitely something he's okay with. But actually, Saskia finds her worst enemy in the form of a untransformed young berserker.
Yeah, that
And
is.
she actually plays for her lowest value in the situation.
That is quite unfortunate and quite fortunate for Captain Frey. So we'll see, but that was still quite a weak play, if I would say so. Now having Siri and in one card having to beat an Aglaeus and a Sapper at 20 strength, that is a tough deal.
And of course, the smart play from Gwen to Town puts the Sapper on melee,
Yeah.
and there's almost nothing that Captain Frey could do now with the Sapper on melee. He has to hope the Sapper isn't enough. We know that he is. Aglaeus coming down for the hammer, and this should be a 2-0 victory to Gwen to Town here.
Indeed. With a very nice Skoya deck, a good control deck. They both played very well. It was controlled in different ways. Captain Frey going a little bit harder in the second round maybe than he should have gone. I'm trying to find out where it went wrong for him. And I think it was somewhere in the second round there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I hate to blame draws in situations, but the fact that I'm looking at his list and I hadn't seen, half the cards on his list in some of the games is really inconvenient. But that's also indicative of Skellige in general when you don't have some of the cards to get through your decks. Like when you don't have an Ermion, when you don't have Svenrega Last Wish, you're not guaranteed very much at all. So that has to be a concern for most Skellige players. If he hits and he gets the right cards at the right timing, Blue Boy Lugos with a couple Axemen on board, he can be devastating. But that wasn't the case this time. And Control Scoia'tael has a lot of answers for big strength decks. And that's exactly what Axemen is.
It was actually one of the most perfect counters for Gwen to Town there. And I think that was probably one of the worst matchups for Captain Frey right there. So, yeah, what do you guys think of the games? Yes.
No, I definitely agree. For the most part, I'm watching these things, and I love the wounding archetype with Skellige. Like it's a solid archetype. Those Axemen can come down and just reach such huge numbers. And I've played around with it a bit personally, but one of my biggest issues with it has always been that consistency. And sometimes you're looking, you have those cards, and like, man, if I have this, I've got this game easy, and they're somewhere in the remaining 13, 14 cards of your deck because you didn't really get a chance to thin too much. So I think it's where it just struggles at the most, and I think we saw it, especially that game too, where playing two priestesses round two just seemed very committal, and I think it was really trying to play round two for card advantage and just couldn't find a good way of doing that and wound up overcommitting into round two when he didn't need to.
Yeah, I think Gwen to Town's Scoia'tael list was actually very impressive. A lot of people have been saying recently that the Sappers are kind of underwhelming, but he was able to get really ridiculous value out of them in those games. And Milva as well. That's another card that people are kind of doubting a little bit, but he's able to use them very, very effectively.
Yeah, I spoke to Gwen to Town before the group stages started, and I asked for his impressions on Milva in general, and he's a big fan of Milva. Thinks Milva is probably one of the best golds in Scoia'tael right now. And you saw, going first and having the Milva both games was a huge game changer. Because even if the Donner Hinder was in hand, which I don't know if he played either game, it's so hard to play it in that capacity and still win in round one, especially when your deck is featuring Siri. So that style of play from Scoia'tael can very well become prominent again, and it synergizes well with the kind of control-y style that he had going.
Definitely for sure, but no. So Gwen to Town moving on to our finals. Captain Frey moving on to that bronze match. But we're going to go ahead and get into our next semifinals. We don't want to take up too much of your time today, so we're going to be moving on. And this next one is going to be casted by Swim and myself. So this next one I meant to put this up beforehand. We got it in between the matches, but here are the deck lists for this next matchup. It is going to be Tragic Star versus Quild. Swim, your initial thoughts on these lists? I'm just curious.
The ones on the stream.
Yes.
One moment. Sorry.
Oh, not a problem. Well, we do have Quild bringing another Scoia'tael list. Definitely seems to fit with that control list. One of the things that I think intrigues me is the Renew in the list, which allows you to play Isengard possibly and force out an early pass, and if they do go with that pass and you have a Renew for round two, you just bring them out again. You don't really care. So
Yeah, yeah. Tragic Star. I mean, he's got the he's running like a full Gales list basically, like all the way up to Fire Elemental. That's a card that some people have been experimenting with, like now that the Gales list is a thing. But it's a card that saw basically zero competitive play for the entire history of Gwent up until that. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works out exactly.
yep. But let's go ahead and hop on into these matches. There we go. And we'll get this cast started for you guys. And just so you all are aware, once again, these are not... The cast is live. The games are not. Just the nature of the beast right now. And so the recordings that we were watching are recorded from the players themselves. So we cannot ensure the greatest of quality sometimes on them. But we do have them for you. So let's go ahead and hop on into this next match. And we do pick up some random system sounds from the recordings as well sometimes. Everything looking good. I think, there we go.
Okay, so we've got here Tragic Star on the Gills, Wild on the Broover, Tragic Star's hand. Two Alzur's Thunders, we're probably going to see one of those going. I'm thinking it's going to be a little hard to find valuable targets for both of them.
Yeah, I agree. One Alzur's Thunder, normally pretty good. Two Alzur's Thunder, you don't necessarily always have to deal with, say, two Ocfists or two Fire Elementals in this case.
Yep.
Well, yeah, there's not often too many good targets for a double.
And he elects to keep the First Light, which is actually quite interesting. Even if he's not necessarily paranoid of weather coming out, it's actually not a bad keep either way, because now that First Light, now that Rally specifically takes the top bronze, you're guaranteeing you won't get like a Necker that was put to the bottom of your deck by Warrior. That's not the case here, but in general. And B, you're actually increasing your odds of drawing golds and silvers because you're pulling the top bronze card.
You do see that Isengrim coming out. First thing from Quild. And again, with that Renew in deck, if it's in hand and we get a very early pass here from Tragic Star, the opts not to decide to stay into this, we do have that option of just renewing Isengrim and forcing out a very long round 2. But instead we do see the Crones coming down, a very high tempo play. Apparently going up 20 points. And just continuing... Oh, and there's the Thunder to try and reduce at least a little bit of future Gale's value.
Yeah, and we'll have to see how this goes. I mean, Tragic Star's hand is actually a little bit unfortunate here. I mean, you'd really like to see... He's missing some key ingredients. He's missing the Neckers. He doesn't have Avalak, and Avalak is very good when the opponent's playing like kind of low tempo, and you've got like more points than them, and you're wanting to reset the balance a little bit. So it may be a bit of a struggle for him finding answers, and he's getting his Vran Warrior locked too. Very awkward position for him right off the bat.
Oh yeah, and the Vran Warrior, actually the Vran Warrior, even with the positioning changes, awkward to try and play it with the Earth Elemental as well, due to the fact that it's eating the rightmost unit now, as opposed to the weakest unit on the field. So if he had played him where he was and the Earth Elemental was still around, he wouldn't have ever actually gotten a chance to snack onto those one strength units. But we do see the pass coming out from Tragic Star.
Have strength,
Yep, and it's gonna even without the Aileron coming down there, we are gonna be seeing him beat his score in a single card, which Tragic Star was probably hoping wouldn't be possible, but it's just a very awkward situation for him. He took a bit of a risk. I mean, he was really hoping that it would have had to take 2 cards there to beat him, but the Aileron coming out and the Last Word getting a little bit of extra value was more than enough.
We do see the locked Vran Warrior sticking around, and unfortunately for Tragic Star, that second Alzur's Thunder that we said you don't really need 2 in hand, there's that second one again coming off of the top deck going into round 2.
Yep. Very, very awkward situation still. I mean, he has the Igni, but it's going to be hard-pressed to find too much value for it here. We'll see. And he's got the Arrakis Behemoths, but he only has, like, a couple consume targets. He basically has to commit to this round with something like he needs to start his train of value with Arrakis Behemoths and Vran Warriors. But since this is K Wild's round to pass, since he won round 1, like you commit for that combo, and then K-Wald passes, and then you're just kind of screwed for round 3.
And we do see the combo pieces in hand for Tragic Star. Ekimara coming down. Hopefully, I believe that this seems to be indicating that Tragic Star is hoping that Quelled will just go ahead and pass. Maybe he just wanted card advantage out of this round. This would allow him to keep a pretty high strength unit going into the next round. But we do see... Oof. And never mind, go ahead and scorch that away. But the double Arrakis Behemoth, and actually that was his only consume besides the Vran Warrior as well that he gave up there. So we have this Vran Warrior, the Skells, this Arrakis Behemoth. There's just not a lot of units available to buff for Gels, and just not a lot of points available to Tragic Star this round.
Yep, this is actually a very, very awkward turn for Tragic Star, specifically because the Nature's Gift is still active on Scorch right now. So if he tries to play any of his 6s in his hand, we might see that Nature's Gift coming down. I mean, we know that's a Broover, so if he plays a 6, then Nature's Gift is going to be scorching those 2 6s. And he's definitely concerned with that right now. A lot of people are running Nature's Gift, and that's something you have to really play around. He's hoping this will circumvent that somehow.
We do see the rally coming off of this first light, probably purely as an attempt to find something else. That's just a very awkward Ekimara. Still 3 Neckers in the deck, still a Vran Warrior in the deck, but instead Ekimara coming out and eating the Arrakis Behemoth and also soaking a Fireball Trap.
Yep. Now, he could consider Nature's Gift scorching for 9 as well. It's definitely not that amazing, but...
No, it's not amazing, but we do see just not a whole lot else available to Tragic Star this round. I'm actually a little surprised to see the Gonser come down here. I wouldn't be a little bit more expecting the Thunder on the Brighthead Dragoon. We know that there are no... actually, I believe there's 2 Blue Mountain Commandos in order to flip that Brighthead Dragoon.
Yes, 2.
Yep. So the Thunder would potentially deny that value, and also doesn't commit too many things to the board.
Yeah, I mean it's very difficult here because when you're in a very awkward situation, you kind of have to play towards your win condition. But I don't see too much of one by Tragic Star. I mean, maybe he sees something I don't, but it's going to be really hard here. I mean, he's going to be bled out of his combo. He's going to go into round 3 with 2 Thunders, or a very, very awkward hand. Like none of the cards in his hand, including Gales, are stuff you really want to see on round 3. And there's nothing in his deck that can necessarily get him out of the situation. Like Caretaker is a pretty solid top deck. Caretaker into Merc, into First Light, into Vran Warrior or something like that would be pretty powerful, but it's hard to get use out of the rest of these cards.
Yeah, whenever you're saying that one card into about 3 to 4 other cards would be pretty good, I think it's a sign that you're in trouble. We do see the Gales getting played out. Decent value on the Gales. That is, do some quick math. 14 value Gales, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he has to pass now. I think he has to take this opportunity. Because, I mean, when you're behind like this, when you're being pressured out of your win conditions, you have to play really, really greedily. And we might be seeing that come down next turn if K-Wild doesn't end up passing here.
Yeah, we just see these very awkward double Thunder still in hand for Tragic Star. I'm curious what he was expecting to be able to snipe with one of them, what key targets he was trying to get. Maybe he was just attempting to get the full 7 value out of it. But no, K-Wild still pushing, and there's that Blue Mountain Commando we mentioned earlier, going ahead and getting an additional little 3 strength Commando Neophyte out.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, when you're getting bled out on round 2, when you're being pushed into this position that Tragic Star is in, you kind of have 2 options, which is just kind of keep dumping your weakest card possible and just be at the mercy of their pass, or you could be a little more aggressive. You can try to flip some power on the board, get value out of that Igni while you can, and maybe enable a very bold pass here so that you can at least go into round 3 even on cards.
I believe he's trying to figure out if he can go for that bold pass right now or not, verifying with his deck tracker, verifying with the opponent's graveyard what cards are left for Quild in this matchup, and He's trying to decide if he wants to spend a Thunder or not. If that does end up being to reveal for that trap card, we haven't seen that flipped. And it is looking like it is going to be to reveal. We do finally see a pass from Quilt, though, which I think will raise a pretty big sigh of relief for Tragic Star to finally get out of this round.
Yep. Yeah, and he's looking to draw something very good here. Like Caretaker, basically, is the only card that will really be able to swing a lot of value.
And I don't think that Katakan is the top deck you are looking for in round 3.
Okay, Karen that, but
Karen,
yeah,
my apologies.
absolutely not.
No, and he mouses over the Neckers as well.
I mean, in certain
Neckers still in the
matchups,
deck.
in certain matchups, like being able to hide that gold value is really going to pay off, but it's going to be too hard here, and he's going to see 0 value out of this Alzers.
He just goes for the pass. 2 cards needed for 10 strength, and there's 20. So first match going over to Quild pretty handedly.
A very, very awkward situation. Just Tragic Star's hand and just like how the round 1 went was pretty devastating to him in terms of like his capacity to really stay in that game going into round 2 and round 3.
Yep. We're gonna go ahead
And his draws in round 2 weren't great either.
Yep. We're going to go ahead and bring you guys over to Tragic Star. So we do have the sideboards available for you guys this time. So Tragic Star has added... let me make sure I got this right, because actually it looks like it's a little off. Something's not.
Oh, really?
Yep, I think I messed up on my graphic. One sec. Where did I mess up at? I believe that there should be... Let me double check. Apologies, guys. I want to make sure that we have these sideboards correct for you. Yes, it is actually 2 Dimeridium Shackles, not the 1 here. The Ekumara is correct, and it's actually, he removed 2 All-Source Thunder as opposed to just the 1.
I see. Okay.
I know what I messed up, and we can go ahead and fix that real quick for you guys.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I mean, the Alzer's Thunder is just going to be basically a whiff in that matchup. Like, at best, you can deny some Blue Mountain Commando value by killing a Dragoon, but it's very good replacing them with D-Shackles just for that specific matchup.
Yep. Yeah, those Thunders, as we saw, just did not do anything for Tragic Star that match. And I think he... Maybe a little bit of frustration change to remove those and add in the Dimeridium Shackles. But the Dimeridium Shackles could hopefully find some value on a couple of key targets, especially that Isengrim if he's able to go ahead and lock that.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's go ahead and bring you over to the updated the deck list now, while we get this next game underway for you.
So was K Wild not? Did he not end up sideboarding anything?
We'll actually get into that in a moment, but for now we don't believe that he sideboarded anything. But we'll have more to say on that at a later time.
Okay.
Go ahead and hop right on into our next match for you. Professional sound effects.
There we go. Oh, professional sound effects.
Again, these are recorded matches from our participants. Unfortunately, there is no spectator mode for Gwent yet, so we do have to deal with their recordings on these, which are probably... We're very grateful that they had a chance to be able to do this for us, because not everybody is able to actually record, so because of that, we don't actually have dual perspectives on just about all the matches, but we do have them on most.
Yep. It'll be a much smoother process all around once Spectator gets implemented into a game. So not seeing any of those new D-Shackles yet, although this time with much more of the kind of hand you're going to want to see. I mean, we've got the Avlac, we've got the Caretaker, we've got some stronger cards, and it's it still has a chance to get a Necker by the end of this mulligan.
I was going to say, a lot better hand, I think, but still lacking the Neckers. There's still 3 of them in the deck. Only the one First Light this time to be able to try and pull one out. Actually opts to get rid of the Caretaker, which I think is very indicative of wanting to win round 1. Caretaker doesn't, especially with no Thunders in the deck, or anymore, you took those out. Without being able to guarantee that something is going to die on your opponent's side, Caretaker just becomes a very useless round 1 card.
Yep. Yeah, it means he really, really wants to push forward into this round 1, which is, I mean, most decks right now are just giving it their all on round 1. We're seeing round 1 kind of gain more and more importance as the game goes on.
We do see that Red Warrior going to go ahead and snack on only the one, but the Ericus. Oh,
yeah, brutal. Okay, I was gonna say no answer coming down to that Fire Elemental this time, but Scorch is such an awkward consideration against this deck. I honestly think that might have been possibly a little greedy by Tragic Star. If he had played the Crones first, that could have been avoided, but. That's just a devastating counter. I mean, this deck you've got so many units landing on 6 strength that it's just going to shut them down.
Yeah, but the Nature's Gift coming out as an additional Scorch. Just Quilled very much not wanting any Brand Warrior sticking around, as evidenced by 2 Scorches for 2 Brand Warriors and a Dimeridium Shackles for the 3rd.
Wow. Yeah, so it looks like he had the D-Shackles after all, and he was just waiting for that second Scorch target. Another Chrome is coming down. And those are going to put a lot of power on the board, and he can slow it down again with Avalac, and maybe go into the next round with a 2-card advantage, but his combo is pretty split up right now.
Still has some of the pieces available to it. Gels is coming down as 10, not the best, not the worst. Avaloc with enough points on board to not go down on points. And there's that Caretaker that he didn't quite want round 1. Popping back up for him.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but honestly, I mean, given the way this round is going, it looks like he can't really stay in this round after all. So drawing the Caretaker, I think, is probably a good thing, if anything. It looks to pass here.
We have Yavin coming down to answer the Avaloc, and Magic Star playing the round for card advantage as opposed for trying to ensure the win. Opts to pass.
He looks like he's hoping that he can't beat him in a single card. Saskia here would do it. Aglaeus would do it as well with a Scorch.
Well, it is now triple Scorch round 1 from Quilled. Burning everything. But fortunately, Tragic Star, I think, might be looking at this as 3 Scorches down. How many more Scorches really are available to Quilled at this point?
Yep. And another thing is that the Caretaker is in his hand, and it's a very powerful card, but it's still not going to be able to pull anything bigger than a Vanguard here. And there's no Mercs in the graveyard, which is slightly unfortunate.
We finally get to see not 1, but 2 Neckers coming out off the draws for round 2.
Oh my god. Poor Tragic Star. Man, you really hate to see that.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, it's not... I'm sure that he's happy to finally see one of them in these matches, but to see both of them at the same time... no, he had much better draws still available to him. Geralt Igni, K-Rin, even an Ekimara. But now, currently down, we do see the flip from that Blue Mountain Commando, going ahead and bouncing the Brighthead Dragoon for an additional Commando Neophyte, and an additional 2 strength onto Elias, which we saw come down as 20 strength last game.
Yeah. I mean, the Gales deck by Tragic Star, it's a very, very powerful deck, but it is a little bit disruptible. I mean, cards like Gales and Old Spear Tip can't give the value they really, really want to give if your combo just gets shut down a little bit.
Well, I think via Tragic Star, you're also happy to see Aileron played from hand. Um,
Yeah.
couldn't quite hit that 5 elf mark in round 1, and drew Aileron going into round 2 for Quild. And speaking of
Yeah.
Aileron, that's a odd choice, I think, to throw into this deck. What's your thoughts on it?
I think it's quite good, honestly. I mean, so the Aileron, I was gonna say, it might have actually been part of the influence on Tragic Star's early pass. Like he passed early, and it's possible part of the reason he did that was because Aileron wasn't pulled yet. And if you pass before the Aileron, then you have a chance at really disrupting their draws. It's a pretty good card, though, honestly. Like, it's pretty easy to get out. I mean, you've got the Vanguards and the Commando. I think Aileron is absolutely good in this deck just because you've got the Vanguards. Like, it's so reliable that you're going to be able to get it in round 1. And this is just one of the cases that it wasn't able to happen.
We do see some more of that combo coming out from Tragic Star. Gills picking up additional value until a Lacerate. This is just rough to see for Tragic Star, constantly trying to set up his combo, set up his big plays, only to be consistently shut down by Quild's control.
Yeah. And the question here is kind of like, I mean, when you've got these Ekimaras, you're kind of considering like when the pass is going to come down, because you want that Ekimara carryover, you really do. But if you play the Ekimara first, then maybe K-Wild pushes you and you have to play the Spirit Tip to neutralize it. If you play the Spirit Tip first, maybe he passes. It's just a very awkward position when the opponent can dictate how long the round is going to be going for.
Oh, and there is that Renew onto Avalok, so there was potentially a fourth Scorch available. We do see that Diamond Radium Shekels picked up from that sideboard earlier. So we don't see this card flip over. Has it been 2 turns for Sapper yet?
Actually, yeah. If that's Sapper, it'll flip as soon as the pass comes out, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
I think Tragic Star just figuring out how much longer he thinks his opponent is going to play into this round.
I mean, the D-Shackles isn't necessarily going to see too much value here. I mean, even if it does lock an Isengrim, it's going to be so late that it can at most see something like 6 value from 2 Neophytes or something like that. So he's considering dumping it here. Presumably on his, well, it doesn't really matter what he uses on. Just get rid of it.
Yep.
And then just hopes that K-Wild will be passing here. I mean, because he obviously, he basically thinks that the risk of being able to lose the game if he's just straight up passes here is scarier than the possibility of giving up D-Shackles for no reason. Because D-Shackles just, it can be very, very powerful against the deck when you lock Isengrim early, and it can just generate so much more value than an Alzur's Thunder in that case, but it's not so great going into round 3.
Yep. And speaking of going into round 3, we see the first light being picked up off the top. Looking into his opponent's graveyard for what would be the best Caretaker steal. Definitely highly considering the True Reveal. True Reveal, typically one of the better ones to take from Caretaker.
True Reveal is simply going to give the most value.
Yep. And that first light, either hitting an Ericus Behemoth or an Ekimara, either one finding a decent amount of value, and actually if he hits the Ekimara from the get-go, being able to save that 8 strength from Old Spirit Tip, because there's not 3 opposing units on the same row, so he's going to flip back over to just a normal, almost sleeping Spirit Tip.
Yeah, and it's actually a little bit telling when you check a graveyard like that, because the opponent can see you hovering over it. So it's a huge tell that you have a card like Caretaker whenever you go through your graveyard or the opponent's.
No, depending on the remaining cards from... Oh, there's that Ekimara. Unfortunately, due to that double Necker draw earlier, actually not the best eats on the Necker, due to no more Neckers in the deck. There we go. I can finish sentences sometimes.
Well, I mean, we have seen all of the Scourges come out. So we're not going to see an answer to this 17 strength at Kimara, and its reveal is going to flip for 8 value as well. So Tragic Star has 8 hidden value here, which means his total score is 31. And that's going to do a lot in terms of catching up to that difference.
Not bad at all.
Oh, and Saskia as well. All right. Well, that will be the conclusion of our second semifinals match. Let's go ahead and bring it back to the caster's desk. So what did you guys think of the match? Ruben, HG3.
Well, I would like to say that, of course, Tragic Star, one of my teammates, along with Gwentatown, and Tragic Star is kind of like my mentor when it comes to monsters. So now everyone can see where I get my draw luck from. It all goes back to him. And that's just really unfortunate. I mean, not only does he play first in both games, which is tough as consume because you want to kind of get the machine going, but he also draws 2 neckers in game 2. So those circumstances are horrible against such a reactive deck in the form of Scoia'tael. And I think K-Wild played really well in both of those games. And Tragic Star had so many points where he just had to say, do I pass here and lose outright to Saskia in round 2, or do I want to just play 1 extra card and see if it'll be okay? And those are decisions you never want to make in a tournament setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree. That were some really good games, but unfortunately, that draw. If he would have gotten some better draws, like not drawing that second necker in the second game, the game would have been a totally different story right there. But still, it was a very good game. It's always interesting for me to see Monsters versus Scoia'tael because they're 2 factions I don't play too often, and therefore it's always very interesting for me to watch. So it was a really good match too.
All right, well, I do have some more of the administrative side of things to discuss real quick regarding that match. So, as Swim pointed out during the match, one of the rules that we had was that we needed to be able to see what cards were being sideboarded in. Unfortunately, Quilled, or K-Wild, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, we had issues getting the sideboards in, so we gave out an official warning, and we followed through with that warning because that was not the first time that we've had issues with the sideboarding. So unfortunately, while it would normally be K-Wild going into the finals, he had to be disqualified for the rules breaking. So because of that, Tragic Star will be moving on to the finals, and there will be no bronze match for you guys to be able to see today. So I do apologize that we don't get to see the finals played out as you were expecting. We don't see that bronze match, but that is just something that we have to be very firm and very strong about, is making sure that the rules are followed, and in this case, they were not. So I apologize for you guys, but it's the way it is. Yeah. So, speaking of the finals, we're going to go ahead and bring you those. So I do apologize again that it ended up being this way. But we will go ahead and bring up the deck list for the finalists. So Tragic Star moving on to the finals, Gwentatown in the finals already, and Captain Frey taking that 3rd place prize for the bronze match. And I can tell my fellow casters is getting extra quiet on me today.
Hello.
No, I think it's a really good point that you guys are defending the rules of the tournament, and it's something that players are going to have to really get used to doing moving forward. Is checking the rules and making sure that everything is in alignment with it. So I think you have to set the precedent early, otherwise you're going to have really awkward junctures moving forward. So I'm fully on board.
But no, so we are moving on to our finals. Here we go. So we do have, back to the main lists, Tragic Star and Gwentatown. So that Gels list we'll be seeing again, and Brugerhug list, Control list, Scoia'tael from Gwentatown. Let's go ahead and get these VODs going for you guys.
So Tragic Star's reward for getting that forfeit victory is to play against Scoia'tael again. and probably even a more control-y iteration of it. I wonder how this one's going to go. And something I noticed about that match when you guys were showing the sideboard swaps is something I mentioned early on. It doesn't seem like sideboards are optimized yet. Probably something that takes way longer than one day in a patch to try and get going in a perfect sense. And like I said, everyone's worried about Henselt. So Scoia'tael being this tough to deal with was probably an oversight as well.
Yeah, Scoia'tael always finds a way. You can't keep it down.
I think we've seen it several times now where Scoia'tael's consistently found some way of staying afloat and staying competitively viable. But let's go ahead and get this on to our next and finals cast for you all. So once again, I will be casting this, and I also have HD3 with me as well.
Ooh, okay. So both of my friends from Gwent City are going to be pushing into the finals here. We got a little bit of a civil war between Gwent Town and Tragic Star. It should be pretty exciting. These are players that play against each other a lot. Also, two individuals that put in a lot of work over the last couple weeks into trying to figure out what will work, what's good. Tragic Star is pretty renowned for being innovative in deck building, and Gwent Town very persistent with Scoia'tael and Nilfgaard especially. So I'm excited.
No, I definitely am as well. We get to see two decks that we only had a day before the qualifiers, and the finals were 2 days after the patch, so there was not a lot of time, period, to be able to prepare for this. And I think that I personally find that really exciting because you try and you have a very short time period to figure out what works and what doesn't. And because of that, you just see a very wide variety of decks being played. And I think that we saw that especially during the qualifiers and the finals now, just being what remains of the cream of the crop for what is good this patch.
Yeah, and it is funny how, Henselt is so popular right now, especially if you're on ladder. And we watched 4 games previous to this, and there's no Henselt there, but all these decks were ready to play that if that were the case. That's really interesting for me in the early stages of any patch, is there's always one deck that might be dictating what the meta is, but may not even be the most dominant deck in the meta, just because of frequency of play and those kind of elements that come into factor when you're considering a tournament setting especially.
And this match will be getting away for you shortly. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to cut this beginning part, but I think as anyone knows who has tried to play a friends match, sometimes you try and take a little bit of time in order to get your opponent to actually accept your invite. But it looks like we are finally getting underway for you.
Yeah, so we'll see if Tragic Star can get a little bit better of an opening hand in this one. It'll be important for him to get the Veranda Warrior machine going earlier on than he was able to in either of the past games. And it's going to be crucial for Gwent Town at the same time to shut it down with Alzar's Thunder or Scorches to try and make it so that round 1 gets out of reach as soon as possible for Tragic.
I think that's one of the biggest strengths of this Gels deck, is that it is able to put up those very impressive round 1s. Just a lot of power on the board. And Gel's always threatening to simply add 2 for every unit that he's able to play. And when he's running Earth Elementals, when he's running... I'm blanking on his name. Man, I'm bad at that. 6 strength, some of the 1/1s, or some of the ones.
What is it? The Fire Elemental?
No, Okay. Well, I'll be reminded as soon as I.
It's okay. This is the first time it's ever been played, so we'll both get a pass on this one. Oh, and look at this. Gwent Town actually holding on to 2 first lights, so not the best opening hand for him here. But he does have the Smuggler, which is going to be a pretty good card to get down early in this round. This card can achieve a ton of value. Even after the nerf, it is one of the best bronze cards in the game, in my opinion.
I definitely agree. And here we see just consistent, I won't say value, but negation of value with that Hawker Smuggler. Every turn, summon a 1, and Hawker Smuggler's just like, oh, I'll take that strength too. That sounds good.
Yeah, and after having dead Thunders for his last set of games, the Thunder finds value in round 1 in a huge way because that Smuggler was going to be doing work with the Crones coming out as well as the Fire Elemental producing his spawns for the duration of round 1. But look at this. Smuggler comes out again. So he plays the odds here. I think it was a 50-50 to pull a Smuggler or a Merc, and he gets the Smuggler back out again. It's a little bit unfortunate that he missed the Crones, and I like the Tragic Star is playing very fast to open up this round. I think he has to do that. And this way it's going to be up to Gwentatown to try and find some really big, meaningful answers here. But the Crones have a blocker from the biggest Crone, so Scorch won't do it alone.
And we do see not one, but actually both Alzur's Thunders held onto by Tragic Star, and both finding pretty darn good value in round 1. That was something that we didn't think would find a lot of value holding onto both Alzur's Thunders, but going up against 2 Hawker Smugglers, those are pretty good. And here we see, due to the positioning patch changes, this kind of awkward, not necessarily awkward, but oddly placed Friend Warrior to ensure that he gobbles up all of those 1 strength little dudes, lesser fire elementals.
Yeah, and if the Behemoth comes down now, then the machine is online, and Tragic Star is going to be in a pretty good position to really take a big advantage, or at least get some momentum going for this round. Of course, Saskia could have come out at any moment to try and slow it down, to try and get a meaningful swing, but it looks like Gwentatown's going to be very patient with Saskia and not try and use it early on to just ward off Tragic Star in terms of getting out of this round. But it's not a Behemoth, it's a Necker instead. So he has Necker round 1, which is very fortunate compared to the past games.
And that's Saskia definitely threatening whatever 1 strength lesser fire elementals really stick around, but being extremely patient with it, trying to ensure the most value with it. And I think it becomes a question of just when do you play Saskia versus just when do you think they're playing Gels. Because as soon as that Gels comes down, that Saskia still finds the value, but no longer denies the value from Gels as effectively.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's holding it as long as he is. It has to be tempting, and maybe it's because he's more disciplined than I am, but it has to be tempting to just smash that Saskia down on the board the past 2 turns to try and take away that Gales value you were mentioning. So we'll see if he ends up doing it, or if he's just going to play very patient as he's been doing so far. Brewer Hook's still available to try and reach for one of these silver cards. Lacerate is in the deck, but he doesn't have any more Mercs. So he could try and reach for a Merc through the Rally. It's a 50-50 right now. And then the Lacerate would be 1 of 4. So very difficult for him to try and find that perfect situation.
Yeah. And he does actually have a guaranteed access to that Elven Mercenary. If he chose to Brewer Hoog for the decoy onto...
oh, yeah, great call.
Yeah, I'm blanking on names today. Jeez. But instead, he goes for the Yavin, and I think that also might have been the consideration for why he was opting not to hold on, why he was holding Saskia for as long as he was, because Yavin coming down for, I'm not even sure how much value he really gave to his opponent at that point, because that was a lot of lesser fire elementals removed.
Yeah, that was definitely a great play to get Yavin out in stride. And now, if he does pull out the Merc, he doesn't have to worry about Scorch hitting for less than ideal value since Yavin's on the board. So he's able to create a situation where he gets a really big swing out of a Scorch if it comes out by means of the Rally. And looks like we're going to have the Ekimara here. So Tragic Star is ready to try and set up an exit strategy for this round, playing the Ekimara to try and ensure he has a nice keep moving forward that is covered by Yavin, which may encourage Gwentatown to pass, or it can establish him with card advantage going into round 2.
And the other nice thing is that we do have, anyway, we don't have it anymore with the Lacerate, but the Yavin was actually the highest strength unit on the board, which, seeing that we have Milva in hand for Gwentatown, made it extremely awkward to be able to play Milva this round if he wanted to do so. But if we do see that 12, maybe 14 strength keep from the Ekimara, and we will not because Gontur comes down instead, but that would have been a pretty good Milva target.
Yeah, and look at this Saskia. This is absurd. Like, I don't know how big of a swing it is, but it's put him up plus 25 from a position where he was down previously. So this round is pretty over. Went to town, able to get 25 points, and all that's left is Gale's ability and one card in Tragic Star's hand. But passing here is so awkward for him. Passing down a card and losing the round and then continuing to play first for the remainder of the game because you're against Scoia'tael would be so devastating that he has to try and claw his way back in by creating extra Arakas and giving him a situation where Gales would win the round. But in doing so, he put himself in a situation where he'd be down 3 cards if Gwent to Town were to pass.
I think that's something that we've seen from Gwent to Town's list, not only this match, but during the semifinals as well. Just this ability to consistently win round 1, or at least play round 1 enough, with card advantage. And as you mentioned, that's not going to be enough, I think. Oh, it's currently a tie, actually, while being 2 cards down, which is yeah, that's a pretty good pass from Gwent to Town. If he does want to win this round, he is going to have to spend his leader ability as well and go down 3 cards against Scoia'tael.
It's actually, he actually gets it because the one pops out from the fire elemental. So I don't wonder why Gwent to Town should have played one more card. It would have been a really tough call to play Milva or the Sapper, though, so I understand why he passed. But Tragic Star did really good math on the fly there to ensure he was going to take the round with the K-Run play. It was so tight. That could have been devastating if it weren't 1 point up. But now he's only down 2 cards, which isn't as bad.
Yep, and it's still pretty bad, but I agree. Like, that is actually something I completely missed because I just don't think we see a lot of that Fire Elemental being played. And, but that Fire Elemental winning that round for him without forcing him to go down 3 cards, well, you're still down 2 cards against Scoia'tael. We do see that Scorch pickup from Gwent to Town. Decoy currently a little awkward for him. Not sure if he has any good targets for it or not. The Dragoon, if he manages to pick it up off the top deck into round 3, would be good. Everything else is a little lackluster.
Yeah, this is a tough turn for Tragic to decide what he wants to do. He has to open pass, which is probably the best play he can muster here. I'm not sure how Milva works because I haven't played her since the change, but I don't think something happens when it's on a pass, right? It's a little more awkward. Do you know?
She will not pick up your opponent's units, but she'll still pick up your units.
Okay, so Milva would not be an answer, so he has to play 2 cards to get a Sapper off, it seems. So maybe Sapper and then Scorch to remove one of the Neckers.
Well, the issue is that there's still another Necker in the deck, if I'm not mistaken.
He should have a 3rd Necker, but it's really awkward here for Tragic. So, I mean, for Gwent to Town, you can see how nervous he is, and he's thinking this over before he goes through with it. Because that's going to be the card advantage that he worked to get back. So, really well played by Tragic there, and just a hand that could not deal with that situation efficiently from Gwent to Town, which it does happen from time to time, but looks like, the keep is going to be on the Gaunter because the Necker came from the deck. So that's it for the Neckers. So it's only 5 strength remaining on the board. Very manageable from a Scoia'tael perspective.
And we do see the Milva still a little awkward to try and play, able to pick up Roach, if I'm not mistaken, which would at least find some value with that Dragoon and some value with that Decoy. We do still have Uglies in for an additional Scorch if need be. So still a fighting position from Gwent to Town, not completely out of this yet. It really depends on what remains with Tragic Star's hand.
Yeah, Tragic Star, if he has perhaps Caretaker in hand or maybe one of the other value golds, could be in a nice position here. But you do see that Behemoth comes down and creates the perfect opportunity to drop down Milva. If Gaunter or Dim had remained the strongest target on the board, which I don't think is possible with Tragic's list, with all Neckers being out and they were boosted anyway, then it would have been an awkward situation to try and sneak the Milva in. But sending an Araka's Behemoth back doesn't really matter at all to Gwent to Town, so he'll push that through. And there is Caretaker, so this is an opportunity to generate some meaningful momentum. King of Beggars will rally out. Old Spear Tip. And unfortunately for Tragic Star, not many units are going to be coming into play for Gwent to Town this turn, but Old Spear Tip is still a decent pull.
Yep. And I will say that if we wanted to have Oglace for Scorch as well, the fact that we're trying... So for Quinton, he's just trying to get the most value he can off that Dragoon and the Decoy in order to make sure they're not dead cards, but consequently ends up pushing up an 11 strength Roach if he ends up going through with that, and an 8 strength Right-Head Dragoon, which, given the current situation, current board state from Tragic Star, I'm not entirely sure if he's going to have cards that are more valuable than that, higher strength.
Yeah, Gael's is going to give, just based on the order of play, probably one opportunity for a Scorch to come through. But the Scorch is at best going to be equal value to a Lacerate, so it's probably just going to end up being a Lacerate on the Siege row, since there will be a 9 strength target in the form of the Behemoth, unless this last card is something monstrous. So we'll see what this last card out of hand is. I'd assume it's going to get played here unless it's one of the 2 remaining golds. Avalok is a really awkward play in this situation. I honestly am not sure what the correct thing to do is if it is Avalok in hand. Fortunately, he didn't have to worry about it because it is a first light into a rally. It should be an Ekimara or a Vran, and there it is. Vran Warrior, going to actually take away a target for Gales, perhaps, next turn. Actually, it takes at the end of the turn, so it should be fine.
Well, actually, takes away, but he replaces it to the Arcus Behemoth still being on the board. And that decoy onto the Right-Head Dragoon, again, just making this no Scorch available for Gwent to Town. The last rate still worth 9 points, as you mentioned. I'm not trying to do some quick math now that we can finally see everything. If it's mathematically possible for either player to secure a win.
Yeah, it's very close. You can see that the only card left is Alzur's Thunder in the deck. So Rally is not even in play right now. The last rate will come through. So Glyce ends up playing for a total of 14. And Gales is going to drop for 10 here, and that should be the victory for Tragic Star unless this Roach pulls a minor miracle.
Well, Roach has been known to do some pretty crazy things, but turning 11 strength into 16 is not one of them that I know of. So
yeah, I haven't seen it happen either, at least recently. There's some big roaches back in the history of Gwent a couple metas ago. But that one is not quite enough. And game 1 will go to Tragic Star. I really like the way he played round 1. Super aggressive. Throwing out those crones early, getting everything on board going, and just basically checking Gwent to Town's hand to see if he had all the answers in stride, and he didn't that game. Gwent to Town's initial mulligan, not fantastic.
And we're going to go ahead and bring you guys over to the sideboards. So Gwent to Town, again, same with the semifinals match, opting not to sideboard anything. Tragic Star wants to get one of those Thunders out and changed it into Dimeridium Shackles, possibly trying to find a good Shackles target on... What, Isengrim?
Yeah, I think that's the only meaningful target in the list, but of course, having the second Thunder, its only target is going to be a Smuggler, and Smuggler's value really only comes in round 1 or round 2. Monsters typically play longer rounds, so probably only one of those rounds where a Smuggler is going to be a real, genuine threat. Having 2 Thunders and your opponent perfectly having 2 Smugglers is kind of like a niche situation. So Dimeridium Shackles should find more value. It can also shut down the Smuggler earlier, if need be, if it can't find Isengrim.
So here are our updated deck lists for you while I get the VOD set up for our next finals match. Are you able to see the match currently, HG3?
I can.
Okay.
And it is rolling for me.
Yep. If you could, 'cause it's not rolling for me, and I'm not sure why. I've had this issue before with this site, unfortunately. What time are you currently at on the VOD?
It is 19:15 and counting. Would you like me to pause?
If you could back that up to 17:30, and we can get this this next match going.
Okay. 17:30, you said?
Yep. And just let me know when you hit play.
I'm ready when you are.
Go ahead and hit play, and let me know when you got that going.
Going.
Okay. Let's go ahead and bring us next to the next match. So Tragic Star up 1 game. Gwent Town, this is a best of 3 for the finals, so Gwent Town needing to take an additional 2 matches back to back in order to try and win this.
Yeah, it's less than ideal for sure. And we already mentioned the fact that Gwent Town not super prepared in terms of sideboards because of the circumstances of the patch and whatnot. So I had spoken with him if he was considering some of the cards such as Cyprian Willy as an answer to monsters in particular. And his opinion on the matter was that even though the card does have a good role against Consume, it's more important to have a lot of your silver spells in Scoia'tael, and I definitely understand that perspective and respect that perspective. You want to minimize the silver units you're actually playing in your deck so you can have a lot of value and meaningfully manipulate some of your Elven Merc plays to get additional value as well.
Yep, and here we go. Mulligan complete. Just waiting on Tragic Star's Mulligan, and we'll be able to see who can win or lose this next coin flip.
Yeah, and it's very important, again, especially for monsters, because if he loses this coin flip, he's playing first for 3 rounds here, which means you have to just kind of pour everything out into the board and hope that the Scorches aren't hitting on multiple targets, that Yavon's not finding a really good timing, as he nearly did in the last match. So he wins the coin flip, and Smuggler is going to come down early. Not the worst case. 2 Smugglers in hand for Gwent Town. These things might get out of control if the Dimeritium Shackles or the Thunders are not available for Tragic Star.
Yep. And we do see once again, so that 2 Hockey Smugglers and that Fire Elemental just not gaining the body on the board, but never the strength. And in this case, actually generating an additional strength for Gwent Town every turn. Not ideal, I think, for Tragic Star in this situation.
Yeah, and it's a card that you cannot hold in your hand. Like, you have to get him out as soon as possible. It's a very integral part of Gale's base Consume deck. So he kind of has to put it down and bite the bullet in terms of giving these Smugglers value. And the Avalok comes down from Tragic Star, but gives Gwent Town perhaps one of the better cards to have in hand here. In terms of Yavon, we saw how devastating Yavon was game 1 against the Fire Elemental, taking out the whole row of the lesser elementals in stride.
And this First Light from hand, we know that there is no weather being run in either deck, so First Lights will I don't think they will ever not be Rally. Just trying to put some additional bodies on the board. Finally stops it at a Dragoon onto an Elven Mercenary. Not the best of the Dragoon targets. I think he was definitely looking to try and find a Vryhead Sapper, but no Vryhead Sappers in hands, making this just a little awkward. A very spell-heavy hand for Gwent Town, and I think we would have seen possibly Isengrim getting played a little bit sooner if we hadn't seen this Avalok.
Yeah, I'd agree. There's too many spells in his hand, and he definitely wouldn't be too happy with this mulligan. But at the very least, these are spells that now he can optimize the timing of. Like Lacerate, for example, is going to be able to achieve plus value because it's being played out of hand. In this situation, Alzur's Thunder probably going to be able to deny a Vran Warrior or a Behemoth, depending on what he'd rather target it with. And the late Isengrim will come out. Dimeritium Shackles misses on it. These 2 players, of course, have a huge history of playing against each other. I'm not sure if Gwent Town had spoken to Tragic Star when they were theory crafting. Maybe the Dimeritium Shackles is something that was on his radar, and that could be why the Isengrim was held as long as it was. And if that was the case, then it was a brilliant play around, as he's able to get it down now. No threat of Dimeritium Shackles any longer, and he'll take the round down 2.
Yep. Well, on the surface, it's down 2, but we do know the Scoia'tael faction ability, being able to force your opponent to go first after you've already won a match whenever you normally would have gone first, and Yavon in hand to pick up not just 1 but 2 of that card advantage back, ending the round with a half card advantage.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, Tragic Star did not play his Crones. So if he really is just like me, he'll have several Crones in hands right now. And that could be pretty bad for him in this round. So we'll have to see. Okay. Yep. So he draws he draws a second one, and it's bad, but it's not too bad. it's not like drawing 2 Neckers going into round 2. And Gwent to town, able to generate some pressure here, finding the first light, which was the last spell in his deck. So this this Merc in hand right now is just a 12 strength body with the 2 buffs from Dragoons on him.
We do see a Necker come down from Tragic Star. Still a Crone in hand, still ahead on strength. King of Barrier is able to pull out the Dragoon to try and get just a... It's going to be a very buff Elven Mercenary.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the stronger Elven Mercenaries we've seen. And it also is just something that Tragic Star's list doesn't deal with well. The consumed monsters right now are way more concerned about producing their own high levels of strength than dealing with your opponent's strength totals. So if he can carry over the 16 into round 3 or use it to gain card advantage back here, then it's going to be super important in the context of this match. And we'll see what the timing is going to be for this Yavin now, because Tragic Star, he's close to being able to just bully Gwent to town out of this match, already up 12, out of this round, excuse me, already up 12, and he has these fire elementals continuously ticking. So Gwent to town could wait for Gales to get popped and then lacerate the range throw, or he can just be more aggressive and drop the Yavin earlier, see what he's working with, and move forward from there.
Yep. I think Wedgetown's definitely playing for as much card advantage as possible, knowing that he has the 16 strength, that it's a little, due to the fact that it's not a Ryehead Sapper, it's a little anti-synergistic with the rest of his hand, especially the Scorch. The Scorch currently only finding 8 value, hitting that Crone. Could potentially hit 14 value if he wanted to throw Yavin over, but it looks like he's trying to ensure that he can have enough card advantage with enough points on the board so that whenever he plays Yavin, he still remains ahead on points, forcing out an additional card from Tragic Star. And we do see that Nature's Gift coming out as a Lightning, Alcer's Thunder, in order to deny the first of the Ericus Behemoths, but Tragic Star with a second one still in hand.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that Thunder hit on a Behemoth. He had the potential to try and gamble on the fact that Tragic Star has a lot of 6 strength units, with not many Vran Warriors played this match, if any at all. He could have tried to gamble on the fact that if he hit the biggest Crone, he'd have 6s lined up on the board, sacrificing one of his own 6s, but getting a really big plus value Scorch. Goes with the safe play instead. Yavin's on the board, so he has a good Scorch target. But we'll see how much it's going to take to try and get the card advantage back in his favor.
Yep. Still playing into this round. It's definitely the advantage of the Scoia'tael player is that you're able to, if you're able to go up around round, you're really able to decide how much you want to pull out of your opponent's hand in round 2. And in this case, I think that he's really looking for more of Tragic Star's combo. So he's looking to try and ensure that Gels gets played. He's looking to try and ensure that as many of the Ericus and the Ericus Behemoths come down and the Ekamaras come down in order to deny just the bodies on board for Tragic Star, which is really where his round 3 value is going to be coming from.
Yeah, and at this point, Tragic Star is playing cards which can carry over value very well. So you see he played the Ekamar last turn. Some players might be wondering why it's coming out at that point. It's because if Gwent to town were to pass, he wants to maximize value. This not only dissuades Gwent to town from passing and having to play extra cards out of his hand, but it gives him a good situation if his opponent is jammed and doesn't have great things going on in his hand. Then, of course, Old Spear Tip comes out. It's a fine card to keep moving into the last round as well. He's probably going to have to play in this kind of mindset. If he were to drop down a Vran Warrior, for example, then that might instantly usher a pass from Gwent to town, just because he doesn't want to get that online and have to deal with that going into next round. It can be Scorched, but Scorch on a single target is not going to generate that big of a difference. He wants to try and link up and get some meaningful double value on Scorches as well.
Yeah, but I think Tragic Star breathing at least a little bit of a sigh of relief to finally be let out of this round. I think it's kind of the feeling that you get sometimes whenever you're down around against a Scoia'tael player is that you're just trying to survive so that you, with as many combo pieces as possible into round 3.
Yeah, and so Tragic will go into round 3 with 11 strength on board. Shortly, it will be 8 strength on board as Old Spirit Tip will transform back. But he has Old Spirit Tip on the ranged row, and probably not going to get a chance to transform again. But if he were able to, of course, that's where your Arrakis are going to spawn if you get some more behemoths and get everything online. But I don't think that'll be too much of a factor in this game in particular. It is going to create a tough decision for when you're going to try and play Milva. Old Spirit Tip is a pretty good play out of hand. Trying to send that back to hand could come back to bite you. And like you were mentioning last round, the hand in general for Gwent to Town gets really awkward this turn. He has to play his golds for considerably less value just so he can try and keep this Merc safe from his own scorches.
We do see the Vran Warrior coming down from Tragic Star, choosing to play it actually on the left of Old Spirit Tip, which, as we mentioned before, with change to Vran Warrior, does not allow him to actually consume Old Spirit Tip, which maybe he was expecting Gwent to Town to play additional things onto the ranged row, but at this point, as we can clearly see from Gwent to Town's hand, we have... It's a lot of golds, definitely not a lot of stuff that's going on with the ranged row, but a very awkward, a very powerful hand. But in order to be able to actually navigate through this hand, very awkward. Saskia possibly coming down only as a 9, possibly even less than Milva. Milva coming down only as the 8 and giving your opponent currently a 50-50 chance of getting Old Spirit Tip back, which you don't necessarily want to be able to have them have the opportunity to move the Old Spirit Tip around and get extra value from him. And Ogly's coming down as if it came down as a rally, at least it's an additional 8, but if you wanted to get an extra Scorch, you have to make sure that you're playing it before your Elven Mercenary, which is currently at 16. So just very powerful, but very awkward.
Yeah, he's going to have to be precise on his timings to try and maximize value here, that's for certain. And now Milva does get a target. The Ekimara consuming one of the Neckers will come back to hand, and that will effectively get rid of 4 strength. So that's fine for him. I'm not sure if Tragic Star has Karin in hand, but the timing of Karin might be pretty important. He knows that Gwent to Town only has 1 card remaining in his deck, so you have to assume that Aglyce is in hand. You also have to work under the assumption that Saskia is in hand. So you have to produce a lot of strength and limit what your opponent can do to mitigate that against a controlled archetype. And of course, Gwent to Town's going to slow play it by dropping a Roach here. So we'll see. Karin could come out right now, potentially. If he waits any longer, could be in trouble.
But instead we see the Caretaker coming out. Not a lot of good things to steal. Opts for the King of Beggars at 6, which did get buffed from the decoy, in order to put out Gonser.
Oh, no. He's linking up on 6s.
He'll actually have a 10 due to the Vran Warrior consuming
Oh, you're right. Good call. That scared me. You see 3 6s lined up on the board. But you're right. He does have the 10, and that's going to just save him just barely.
I'm not sure if it necessarily... It saves him from the Scorch, but we're seeing a lot of bodies on the board now for Tragic Star, which is allowing that slightly awkward Saskia to play to not be awkward whatsoever. We're looking at, 3, 7, 14 strength Saskia on the board. Actually, I'm sorry, 15 strength, because I believe that Roach will come out first and receive the buff.
Yeah, so Gwent to Town's still in a really nice position here. I was just terrified when I saw all those 6s. But you're right. It seems like Tragic Star is still in a capacity where he has to be responsive and try and figure out this board. I don't think he has Karin if he plays Caretaker in that capacity. So we'll see what last 2 cards in his hand can try and anticipate and deal with 16 strength Merc and a Glyce that is playing for a wide range. She's probably playing for 14 right now on a Scorch, depending on what the timing is.
Yeah, currently, I think Scorch is the most value you're going to be able to find out of Uglies. Rally is a guaranteed 8, but as you mentioned, currently 9 strengths on board for Tragic Star with that Vran Warrior. And a little bit higher now, going up to 11 strength as the highest thing on the board.
Yeah, Ekimaras are just tough to play here because you're taking a body away and you're making a stronger target, so you're adding value to a Glyce. But Ekimara is such an integral part of a consume deck that there's really no way around having them in your deck. You can't tech them out and still function the way you'd want your consume archetype to function. So it's unfortunate, but 16 strength is not the end of the world. The end of the world is, in fact, having Geralt Igni as your last card instead of having Karen.
And that half card advantage that Gwentatown managed to pick up in round 2, coming back and securing him this victory, because that was going to be 20 strength on the melee row, allowing the 16 strength Elven Mercenary to be scorched from Geralt Igni, but instead, due to that half card advantage, flip those orders around, and suddenly we have a very safe 16 strength Elven Mercenary.
Yeah, and really well played there by Gwentatown. Very patient, and he took his opportunities as they showed up. If he were too antsy with his scorches, perhaps he doesn't find that extra bit of value on the Ekimara, and it becomes a little bit more troublesome. So nicely done there, and Tragic Star just coming up short. That round 1 loss just set him back significantly, even though he went down. He was up 2 cards. Passing his monsters has been awkward for quite some time now, and I wonder if he's going to just force the issue here in game 3.
Yep. And as we mentioned going into that game, it is a best of 3 finals, so Gwentatown needing to have won 2 games back-to-back in order to be able to take this finals. Tragic Star only needing the 1 victory, and Gwentatown evening up the score and turning this into the final match of the finals. Tragic Star and Gwentatown both up 1 game, so this is it. This is for first place.
All tied up, a final game, exactly what you want to see in a tournament like this. And it looks like we'll have Gwentatown playing first. So the Smuggler Open, there is no Milva. Milva would have flipped the situation with the coin and set the table up well for Gwentatown, but she's not in opening hand for once. Isengrim is, though, so he has the opportunity to once again put a lot of pressure around 1, make life awkward for the Monsters player, and Tragic Star is going to have to show us what he's got if he wants to win this one. And it's always the Fire Elemental. 100% play rate on round 1 for Tragic Star.
Yeah, Fire Elementals, Hawker Smugglers, just consistently denying it. And we do see that Dimeridium Shackles that was sideboarded in not the 2 games ago, actually, right after that first game, and finding extremely good value off of the Isengrim. But I'm not sure if that second Hawker Smuggler was what Gwentatown was looking for. There was still an Elven Mercenary in the deck. Both of them being at 4 turns it into a 50-50 chance of pulling out one or the other. But again, these Hawker Smugglers actually gaining 1 point a turn every time that one of the lesser Fire Elementals gets spawned from the Fire Elemental. But we also see the Crones in the opening hand from Tragic Star. A lot better than last game where he drew both, or drew 2 of them. So a much stronger start from Tragic Star going into this match.
Yeah, but these Smugglers now are going to be extremely difficult to deal with. The only reason I could see him not trying to do anything, maybe he has Igni in his opening hand, something he could not find value on late in the game last game, so he'd be inclined to try and use it earlier on. Against Scoia'tael, you really don't feel bad for using Igni in round 1 for whatever value presents itself. So that could be one of his potential answers here, because these Smugglers are going to be crazy. They're just going to keep ticking and give Gwentatown a huge lead in this round.
It's the equivalent of playing a Yin Conjurer or a Trebuchet, simply due to this Fire Elemental and Hawker Smuggler situation. But Gwentatown seizing the opportunity to play Yavin while still being ahead on points. The other consideration that I'm surprised he didn't go with, and I think he opted for the Yavin instead, is, again, due to this Rand Warrior positioning change. Rand Warrior will only eat the cards on the right, so as opposed to playing the Nature's Gift for an additional All-Source Thunder, opting to play Yavin instead and just denying anything that the Rand Warrior can eat in order to get any additional value.
Yeah, I think I like that play a lot. This forces him to kind of use an Ekimara to try and get the Rand Warrior online or something to that effect, and doing a play like that puts the Rand Warrior in a position where his strength is at risk to some of the bigger spells in the game, even though Smugglers right now are blocking Scorch from hitting for value. Behemoth will come out, so it should put the Arrakis next to the Vran Warrior if he could spawn them. Just not spawning them as a function of the machine right now, which could be a little problematic.
Speaking of a little problematic, we do have that Scorch just chilling in Gwynta Town's hand. These Hawker Smugglers are the largest things on the board, even larger than that 14 strength Yavin. And they're not going to be losing that strength anytime soon. So that Scorch is kind of a dead card for Gwynta Town. And speaking of dead cards, we're looking at either maybe one dead Vryhead. No, not Vryhead. Yes, Vryhead? The Sappers.
Yeah, I think they're Vryhead Sappers.
Yep. I'll get the names on all these cards right one of these days. I know what they do.
You got to memorize all the clans, all the tribes, everything. It's a lot.
There's a lot of lore.
I only use one word from the name to simplify everything. But Old Spirit Tip will come down here, and it's a really nice Old Spirit Tip because it's going to get the buff off on that whole row and hit on 4 targets as well. So that puts him in a position where he's only down by 2 strength with perhaps Igni in hand. I mean, we can't know for sure, but if Igni's in hand, then he has this round. He might have to go down 2 to do it at some point, but after seeing last game and how difficult it was in round 2 for the Monsters player in Tragic Star, I think he'd be willing to do that.
And not only did the Spirit Tip turn this into only a 2-point difference, 3 points once it goes back to his turn, but it also lined up both of the Hawker Smugglers to be at the same strength, making that Scorch even more awkward. And we don't see a Scorch in Tragic Star's list, but it definitely threatens.
Yeah, and one of the changes to Vran Warrior, of course, is that it doesn't consume after your opponent has passed. If Vran Warrior had consumed after your opponent had passed, and Arrakis comes out and this round is tied, which is very interesting. I think that change was recent, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not 100% certain. I remember people talking about it a couple days ago. So
change?
It's the Vran Warrior not consuming once your opponent has passed.
Oh no, it's not once your opponent has... So Vran Warrior will consume at the end of the turn.
Oh, really?
Yes, but what ends up happening is that they changed the order of when end of turn effects were occurring. So it was that if you had passed, end of turn would still take effect. However, now if both players have passed, the end of turn will not take effect.
Okay, I was mistaken. Thank you for clarifying that. But it looks like he's going to end up using Gale's ability to push it through here, which means he's going to keep an 18 strength Vran Warrior, which is probably the biggest Scorch bait we've seen in a while. I don't think there's any way around. It's actually on Behemoth. So Behemoth must have been played after.
It's hard to
One day we'll get that marker where it will tell us what the keep is. I mean, back in the day, it would have been that little Arrakis staying over. But of course, with the change to Monster Passive, a lot more favorable for the Monsters player now. But still, a Behemoth staying on 8 strength, it's virtually the same thing. I mean, that Warrior would have got scorched immediately. So Tragic goes down 2 to win the round, as I suggested he'd probably be looking to do. This is something that was very common for Monster players last patch because hard removal was much less common in the meta. But now that hard removal in the form of Scorch and Ignis have made their way back in, these keeps are much less meaningful, and it's going to be harder to generate 2 or 3 cards played from your opponent off of them. So we'll see what the response is here from Tragic, if it's going to be an open pass to try and offset 1 card. If he had a really strong hand, I think he would open pass here. If it's a little uncertain, then I think he plays out a couple cards. Monsters do not like playing these kind of 5-card rounds, though. They want long rounds, typically.
We do see the Necker coming down, and actually that pass would have guaranteed not 1, but actually 2 card advantage, because there was simply no way for Gwynta Town to put down 9 strength in 1 card, given his current hand.
Yeah, so really unfortunate from our perspective for Tragic Star, but holding a Necker going into round 3 would have been kind of difficult for Tragic Star because he can top deck another Necker and then just have low value plays coming out of his hand.
Oh, and Avalok in hand as well to actually try and offset a little bit of that card advantage. We see picked up an extra Vryhead Dragoon, so we're looking at a potentially 20 strength Sapper going into round 3 for Gwent Town. Trying to... Oh, that is actually a dead first light now, due to Avalok pulling the only remaining bronze unit.
Yeah, and dead first light, the best play to kill time. All Scoia'tael players have experienced this at some point or another. So he'll just kill a turn and see what Tragic wants to do. Tragic knows that this card, anything flips, it's going to be enough to win the round for Gwent to Town here. So he's going to play an additional card. Playing it to the right of the Necker is very interesting because that is his first Necker. So the Vrand Warrior will not be consuming that Necker unless he has a second one in his hand and he's just trying to get stuff out of his deck.
Oh, and he'll actually be consuming the shadows off of Gonter Odim. Lots of consumption. Here's a very strong part of the combo, so I think this signifies that Tragic Star is wanting to bleed out simply as many cards as possible, and if not 2-0 went to town in this match.
Yeah, a very aggressive play, but now you could see Gwent to Town highlighting his Scorch. These 8s are going to line up in 2 turns if Tragic doesn't pass, and that would be a high value play for him. So I'd assume he'd be looking to just kind of play a Dragoon here, slow play it again, give Tragic Star another turn to decide what he's going to do. But I can't imagine Tragic Star is going to play another card into this round. Whoa, he instead goes for full tempo, wants to take the round outright right here, and that opportunity for the Scorch will in turn be gone.
Tragic Star still decided to play into this round. I do like the Saskia play quite a bit, simply because while that would have lined up in 2 turns, what we would have seen also is simply too many cards being forced out of Gwent to Town's hand without forcing out any additional cards from Tragic Star. Tragic Star had a fairly safe pass if that Saskia did not come out. And we do see, speaking of that Necker in hand that you thought might be there, it was.
Yeah, that's the only reason I could see placing the Vrand Warrior where he placed it. And placement is another thing that a lot of players are going to be working on to try and get a better understanding of why you're putting certain things in certain positions. But this is a nice play because the Necker comes out, gets consumed, and now the new Necker is not going to be on the keep for the Monsters player. Of course, we have no idea what the keep is now because Scorch comes out, removes the Vrand Warrior.
I believe it is the Ericus Behemoth on the right, the 6th strength one.
Okay, that's probably right. But once a couple things start dropping, really hard to keep track of. But I'm sure Tragic Star knows exactly what it is, and it won't matter any longer as we do see the Ekimara pop out. And this is another decent Scorch target, and it looks like he's going to have to play a Glyce here. No option. If this Scorch were not enough, then the game's over.
Lacerate. It does go for the Scorch, and it is enough by a point.
Yeah, he really got lucky there because that Sapper would have been a super awkward play for him. He would have had to play out his whole hand to get the Sapper to flip. So that lined up perfectly for Gwent to Town, and Tragic Star, thinking that he had him in a pinch, misses out by 1 point. Yeah, now the Arrakis Beam stays on the board.
And here's a Nature's Gift currently on a Scorch as well, to at least remove the 6 strength, and a 20 strength Sapper. This is just not looking too great. And there's the K-Rin. I'm sure that Tragic Star would have loved to have had that last round. Scorch now being a dead card, but it is still a card, which is all that's needed for the Right-Head Sappers in order to go off. So.
This Right-Head Sapper so close to being dangerous because Nature's Gift, of course, has to play to get the Sapper to flip. But since Ambush card's untargetable, that's still a little scary. It's an awkward play of 2 cards there. With no risk, of course, for Gwent to Town. But from my perspective, Scorch is a scary, scary card. And he will take it. So huge victory for Gwent to Town, taking down Tragic Star in a very close series. We're seeing a lot of 1-point victories in those rounds, and ends up being a 6-point victory because K-Rin showed up last. But that was really close between those 2 players, and very exciting.
I think a lot of that came down to that single point round 2 If he'd managed to force out just one more card from Gwent to Town, then we would have not seen the 20-point Sapper going into round 3, and the Nature's Gift would have been completely dead. The Karen would have been totally fine at that point, 14 strength to 0, but off by just a point. But a big, big congratulations to Gwent to Town, our Gentleman's Open March champion. Big congratulations to you. And Tragic Start, so close, but you're still getting second place, so nothing to scoff at whenever there were over 100 players that I also want to thank for coming out and participating in the Gwendolyn's Open this month. But Ruben, Swim, your guys' thoughts on the matches?
Hugely exciting matches there, Dale. I think Gwent to Town's deck is really, really powerful, and it may start to really have a presence in ladder once the meta stabilizes. I mean, that kind of deck is very reliable. Like, just after a patch, it's top 100, even top 200, doesn't matter. Like, people are playing kind of weird decks and kind of like they're kind of getting away with it because everyone is. Like, the meta has yet to really stabilize, but once it does, we're going to see a certain kind of really like flexible and mid-rangey kind of deck come out on top, and it really might be Gwent to Town Squaretel control list or something very similar to it.
I loved those games. They were so close. They were much closer than expected. Usually you have like one of the best games in like somewhere in the semifinals or something, but now the finals was, in my opinion, they had the best games, the closest, and the most enjoyable to watch. And I love that it was in the finals because it's playing for some money, and that makes it even more exciting. But this was very nice. It was a good ender.
That I just keep going back to that 1 point in round 2. So just to go show you how close these matches are sometimes. Because that, if he just managed to force out that one additional card, that one Sapper, that would have been enough. But just couldn't quite get there, and thus Gwent to Town taking the victory. Coming back from, this is a best of 3 finals, and he was down one of the games from the beginning. So managing to win back-to-back games in order to take this, a little bit of a comeback story there. But just extremely well played by both players.
Yeah, I think those games were very exciting. And these are two players, like I said earlier, that have played against each other a lot. So very familiar with each other's play style. I think there were some cheeky plays in the middle there, like that play around for the Dimeridium Shackles in one of those games, and then gets revenge in game 3 where the Shackles is perfectly timed on Isingrim. I really like this kind of exchanges, and it added some flavor to the match for me as well.
That will be concluding our cast for this month's Gentleman's Open. We will be back for an April Gentleman's Open as well. Stay tuned for an announcement on that as we move on. Maybe about a week or so. We might have some more finalized dates for you guys, but I do hope to see you all again for the next casting of the Gentleman's Open. That'll be in April, and I do hope that if you're interested at all in getting into the tournament scene, it's a great opportunity, and we'll be seeing... It's nice also seeing the official tournament support from Gwent Challenger as well. So I hope that it should just be a great opportunity with the Gentleman's Opens to prepare for that a little bit, and also to have just a good time with the tournament scene. It's a different way of playing Gwent, I think, and it's a lot of fun. So I do recommend that you guys check it out. But a big, big thanks to everybody who tuned in, everybody who participated in the Gentleman's Open this month, and congratulations to Gwent to Town taking home that first place prize of $100, Tragic Star second place prize of $60, and Captain Frey third place prize of $40. Big congratulations to all of the winners. That is all I have to say for the last of my shoutouts. Does anybody have any shoutouts?
Sure. I just want to thank you guys for having me on board. Congratulations, of course, to my buddies from Gwen City, Tragic Star, and Gwent to Town for winning the tournament, of course. I think you guys are doing a great thing here with the Gentleman's Open, and I want to voice our appreciation for you guys being able to put up such a substantial prize pool. The evolution of this tournament is very important for the community growth of the scene. And this is probably one of the best opportunities for players to get to practice for events like the Challenger in a kind of tournament setting and get some really good matches in. So thank you guys for everything you're doing, and thanks for having me today.
Ruben?
I'd like to shout out our site, of course, the Guantama.com. We have some great articles there. We have the meta snapshot of this patch. We'll keep that as updated as possible, as soon as possible, as much as possible, I mean. And yeah, follow the channel, follow Twitter. Just we'll keep you updated on more content.
Swim, I'm not even going to ask. I'm not. You are welcome to say something, but I'm not going to ask.
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, from all of us at the Gwendolyn, big thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The goal is to rebroadcast this at some point, and probably this weekend, to try and hit the North American side a little bit better timing for you guys. So stay tuned for that. Also, stay tuned for the Gwendolyn Talk Show this Thursday. With the time change in European time zones, it will be a slight change for you guys. It's an hour later than it was before, but it should still be the same for the American side of things. But big thank you to everybody who tuned in, and I hope to see you all again this Thursday at the Gwendolyn Talk Show, and we'll have a rebroadcast of this tournament as well for a more American-friendly time. And a big thank you as well to HG3 for agreeing to cast this with us. Definitely appreciate it, man.
No problem. Anytime.
All right, with that, I believe that will be the end of this cast. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week, and hope to see you all again on Thursday.